So before I go into all the book reviews that I've done for the year, I do want to say two things that I have learned. One, I kind of like a week ago, in late December, decided to do a recap of all the books, and I think that ruined a bit of the reviews because there were some things that I forgot, and it wasn't clear in my mind, especially for the earlier books that I read. So starting next year, what I will do is once I finish a book, I will give my review, and I think that will make them more detailed, and I think I will have like a mini. If there's a book that I really enjoy, I can give a non spoiler section, and then a spoiler section if there are certain parts or characters that I want to talk about. Because I realize a lot of the Halo novels that I'm going to talk about, I say, oh, I don't want to spoil this. Oh, I don't want to spoil this. I don't want to spoil this. It was a good book. It's like, okay, that's amazing. Uh, you know, reviews for books, but I don't want to redo them because I feel like I've already done them a couple times. So I'm just gonna have whatever I said be it. I'm just gonna kind of go in at that. But that'll be fun for next year. The first book I read this year was Halo: The Rubicon Protocol. This book is basically about what the soldiers and the Spartans and everyone else aboard the Infinity were doing between the 6 months that Master Chief was knocked out and taking a nap in space. The main group of characters that you will be following in this book is two Spartan 4s, Bonita Stone and Nina Coven. And they're with a bunch of different soldiers. The main one that you are focusing on is Lucas Browning. Try not to give too many spoilers, but it is just them doing anything they can to survive. There are two parts of the book I want to talk about that are interesting. There was a part where I believe it was Coven. Um, they were all hiding in a cave trying to run from the Banished, and she suddenly toppled over because there was a malfunction with her armor because it had sustained so much damage. And it took all the Marines to kind of figure out how to get power and how to get it functioning again. But she was scared, and I never realized that because if you lose power for whatever reason, for all the damage and how long you continue to fight and everything, you're just stuck in 1,000-pound armor, unable to move, and that is terrifying. So I had never thought about that before. There was another operation that they all did where they found a big outpost for the Banish, and a lot of it was methane for the grunts to breathe. And methane is very explosive. It's very flammable. So they had a plan where they pre-built holes and put rations in so that they could hide for about a week. So after they blew it up, they hid in the holes, and the reason they did that was they couldn't outrun the Banished because they had vehicles and air support, right? So they would search and search and search for days, continuously, and then they would just realize they must have escaped somehow. We don't know how. We'll just have to, go back to base and figure out what to do. And then they just snuck out at night a week later, which I thought was a really cool operation. It was a big hit to the Banish, and there were no casualties on the human side, so it was pretty good. I don't want to go too hard into this. I will say, though, there are parts of the book that are in Halo Infinite if you read the audio logs from the human side, which is pretty cool how they try to find a way to connect those books. This was the second book that I ever read from Kelly Gay, the first one being Epitaph, but I really like her writing style. I feel like she can write really major characters in the Halo universe, down to, smaller characters like just basic Marines. But yeah, this is definitely a single book that is definitely worth reading. So my second, third, and fourth book was a trilogy. It was Kelly Gay's trilogy. Since I liked her, the first book I read this year of her, I said I might as well read her trilogy. The first book is very short. It's 200 pages. And it seems like it's a very basic, like just introducing the characters. The main one is going to be Rihanna Forge. She is a salvager trying to find UNSC ships. She lost her father during the war, and she has made it very clear she's trying to find a certain ship, the Spirit of Fire. You can guess by her last name who her father is. Minor spoiler, but it's just the first book. It's nothing too bad. There's a little bit of a romance thing going on, but it's nothing too bad. And she has another crew of two siblings. I unfortunately cannot remember their names right now. But they're not bad side characters in my opinion. They do have growth throughout these books for the most part. But yeah, the first book pretty fast read. The second one, Renegades, is really good. This will be a minor spoiler for the beginning. They come across a location that Oni is trying to get to, and they get there first. They find an armiger, which is a forerunner soldier that is controlled by an AI. And there is a certain AI in it. Who is it? It is 343 Guilty Spark. He survived the events of Halo 3. So this is kind of their journey. She wants something from him, he wants something from her. They can help each other. I really don't want to go into too many spoilers for this book, but it is pretty interesting. It is still Rihanna's story in this book. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it was pretty good, and I actually do like seeing Guilty Spark in this. The book after that, the final one in this trilogy, Point of Light, personally for this trilogy, my favorite. A lot of stuff happens. Due to the events of Renegades, it is more. Oh man, I'm trying not to say the other name. I keep almost saying that. Guilty Spark. It's mainly Guilty Spark story, which I think is not a bad thing. There are some parts in it that are really cool. There is one where they eventually find out they have an Oni probe on their ship. So, Guilty Spark, while the ship is in slip space, because he's in an armature body, he's like, alloy, so he's fine to get out. He gets out of the ship and is on top of it while it's in slip space, right? And pulls off the probe and just throws it out the side. So I thought that was an extremely cool scene. He was also really frustrated. And the relationship that he has with Little Bit, who is a character that... Oh man, I'm trying to see if I want to say this. I don't think it's too bad. They eventually come across Little Bit. He is a very fragmented AI that was in charge of an installation. I will not say what the installation was. But the relationship that he has as kind of like a big brother to him and fixing him and trying to help him it's very, very touching to see. The last when I was reading this book, I remember I had 30 pages left, and I thought, okay, well, I'll just get through them fast because they're gonna do like probably a recap, and that'll be it. Nothing major is gonna happen in those last 30 pages, and I could not have been more wrong. There is a word that Rion is talking to someone, and I can't say who it is, but they have a ship besides the Ace of Spades. And they said that this ship has a mission, and she asked the captain or, of the vessel, what is the purpose of the ship? And he just looks at her and says, atonement. And that gave me goosebumps because in terms of the novels, I feel like there's only one other time that word was used so seriously, and it was during the trial and burial of Mendic and Bias. So it was extremely good. And the very last line that they say in this book is very, very touching. So the next book I read was Halo Bad Blood. It was written by Matt Forbeck. I'm gonna be honest, when I saw that name I was like, oh, god dang it, because he did New Blood, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it because two main reasons. One, they kept going from the past to the present back and forth, and I just feel like it didn't really work like it did in ODST, and it really did feel like they were doing ODST 2 but in a novel. This book though was not bad, but they did have to once again like get the old gang back together, which means they did have to get Mickey out of prison, which is a small spoiler. Something that I did enjoy the first time, but then it got old when they kept doing it, just because I felt like they were going in circles and there was nothing that was happening in terms of progression on either of their sides from seeing each other's perspective, was when Buck and Mickey were talking about why, Mickey became a traitor. And when he kept saying why he didn't like, what the UNSC and the UEG were doing, and Buck's argument was basically just, don't be mad. So, I didn't really enjoy that. It is also funny how, like I said, to make it feel like ODST the book, they said we also need a Huragok. So we're gonna get the one that you guys know. Oh, and he won't go anywhere unless Sadie's with him. So it's like, okay, that's fine. But the main point of the story is they found a planet. They found it a while ago. Oni did, but there's a planet that has a foreign installation that can hide itself. So they want to have a UNSC base there, so they have a way to fight the Guardians and the Created, and they can, have time to do it. The issue is, it was found quite some time ago by the insurrectionists. So they're trying to be like, hey, listen, we know you hate us, but the Guardians are way worse, and we need to stop them. You guys have a planet that can help us do that. Will you do it? And then, that's basically the whole plot of it. So it's not a bad book. I really do enjoy it. It's just, I feel like they're like, right, guys? Guys, remember the nostalgia from ODST back in the day? Right? Right? You like these characters together. They're back again, right? So after you get over that hump, it's not bad. I really did enjoy it. This is a quick little tidbit I'm going to add to Bad Blood. Two things that I learned when reading this book. One, Buck does not really like Romeo. He thinks he's very annoying and immature. And when I played the game, when I was thinking about the game, I was like, no, he was just like a little bit of the comic relief. He wasn't that annoying. He is definitely annoying. He definitely does not take combat seriously sometimes, and it's like he'll make jokes in the middle of combat. It's like, bro, we are getting shot at. Please stop. I know that's supposed to be his character, so that was interesting. How you got to see a bit more into Rome's perspective. I was also just curious about who the voice actors were and everything, because I know obviously who does Buck and Mickey, but Nolan North voices Romeo, and I'm like, interesting. Don't know why you didn't get not to be I know people go to politically correct and everything, but it's like, why would you not get a black guy to voice Romeo? That's just kind of weird. But yeah, fun little fact about that. So book number 6 was Halo Outcasts. This is interesting because it is what happens before Halo Infinite on another planet. It is what Atriox was doing right before he came to Zeta Halo. The main people you're going to be interacting with is Olympia Vale, which I like because I really liked her character, and the Arbiter, Thel Vadam. They are on a planet that has a weapon that is rumored to have a weapon to destroy Guardians. So they are basically trying to get that weapon. They're also trying to do it before the Banished get that weapon. Something interesting about this book, when I read the background of what's the main synopsis and everything, it takes place on Netherope. So if you had read Halo Oblivion, you know why that's important. So you kind of have to read, you don't have to, but if you had read Halo Oblivion before you read this, when they say they're going to Netherope, you're like, oh, you're going to have to do some explaining to some people on Netherope, just so you know. That was extremely interesting to see, was to go down there and be like, hey, we know you guys have been stranded and fighting each other for the past 20 years, but we're good now. Obviously, they're like, yeah, we're not good. Overall, though, really good book. I'm really glad that I read this. It would have been nice to have read it, I don't know what year it came out, but it would have been nice to have read it before Halo Infinite to know stuff that was happening. I am curious when it came out. Oh, 2023. So, not a thing that was possible then. So that's fine. So, book 7 was Halo Empty Throne. And I can easily say this book is in my top 5. I'm pretty sure this might be my second favorite Halo book. This book is so well written with how many different characters there are, and how things come together naturally, and how a lot of the characters change in a way that is believable. There's just I'm trying to figure out where to start from this book. Let's start with the thing that made me instantly when I was reading it. I'm like, okay, let's read this, and then I was like, I'm in this right now. Gray Team is in it. When they showed up and it's in like the end of the second or third chapter, I'm like, let's go. I had no idea they were in this book. So when you have Jai 006, my third favorite Spartan 2, I'm on board. And obviously Michael and Adriana are amazing characters. Great Team is very unique from the Spartan 2s. They're kind of like, everyone thinks the Spartan 2s are weird if you're not a Spartan because you're like, they act weird and everything. Which, go figure when you've been training in the military your entire life. But Grey Team is like the outcast in the Spartan 2s. They're like, yeah, Grey Team's kind of weird, aren't they, guys? Yeah. So, so when they were on board, I'm like, let's do this. The other characters that's in this, Black Box. Black Box is my favorite AI in the Halo universe. This is going to be a minor spoiler for the Kilo 5 trilogy, because it's a small point that they do, but when I first read Black Box as a character, I was already drawn to him. I thought he was really cool, the way he acted and everything, the reason he's called Black Box and takes that shape and everything. Even though he's blue, but he explains that. But he is a smart AI, and pretty much when you make a smart AI, a human has to be sacrificed, so you have to use their brain to scan it, and it pretty much gets destroyed for the most part. And he was a scientist who regretted that he was a part of the Spartan 2 program. He realized, hey, we should not have taken these kids, we should not have destroyed their lives and their families, and turned them into weapons of mass destruction, basically. So he wanted to correct that mistake by taking his life and being an AI that would help the Spartan 2s. Now, he mainly spent his time with Saren Osman, who is a washout, but she was in the Spartan 2 program. But she does help with other Spartans. But seeing him in this book was fantastic. The other character is Abigail Cole. And when I read that last name, yes, she is the daughter of Preston Cole. And the apple is not too far from the tree. She is a brilliant master when it comes to naval combat. And the naval battles in this book were incredible. I feel like we haven't gotten that many naval combat in the Halo novels in a while, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but this was such a nice treat, and they were massive battles at some point. Can't go into too many points there because that's just spoiler territory, but they were incredible to read. Two characters that are in this as well that, so Radas Vadum is in this. I'm always bad with the name, so I apologize. But he is pretty much like training and working with a female Sangheili, which I really like that the Swords of Sanghelios are really trying to change their tradition and letting female soldiers in to their ranks. Because Tal Jaran, if I'm pronouncing that right, she is a great character and she is amazing at combat. The way that she views humanity and how that changes, mainly because of Jai and the stuff that they do during battle, is very unique to see from her perspective. Being like, I still don't like humans. I know I'm supposed to be friendly towards you, but I still just, there's a lot of hate from the War of Annihilation. But just seeing her interaction and how she changes is really unique. The other characters that were in this was Chloe Hall, who is necessary for the main plot of the book. I will not go into that, but she is being led somewhere because the whole point of this book is that they have found an entryway into the domain, and humanity and the Covenant and the Banished, or the Covenant factions, are trying to get to it first. The only downside I would say to that is Halo Epitaph came out before this book, so you kind of know how that goes down. But seeing them race to this point and get hold of the domain is big, because whoever controls the domain, you pretty much have access to a lot of information and technology. But she's being led by James Solomon, who is a pretty unique Spartan too. So he was only in the Fall of Reach, and we thought he died. And he comes back, and is pretty torn up about all the stuff that he's been doing between the events of Reach and this book. Can't go too much into that. What I will say is, it is interesting that they decided to bring him back because the way that he died in the fall of Reach, I don't know how exactly he survived because he had a needler combust on his back. So they said they just found him in, in space above Reach, but the amount of time that had passed, you would have assumed that there would have been holes in his suit, so he wouldn't have survived. But that's a minor thing about that. But he is a really good character that I'm really happy we get to see more about him. I will say the other big character is Severin. He is a brute that is in the Banish. And I will say a couple things about him. Not trying to get into too many spoiler territories. So, he has learned something from torturing an Oni agent and tells Atriox. And Atriox says, okay, we will go to Zeta Halo, because this takes place before, during, and after the explosion of Zeta Halo. Because while we do this, you'll be in charge of the rest of the Banish, and your mission is to go to this Lithos, the entryway into the domain. And the other higher-ups in the Banish have made it clear they do not like Severance. I'm saying Severance. I think it's Severin. Apologies. I'm trying to do this based off memory. And the thing that was interesting is one of his captains said in private, "It is unfortunate that they do not see you for all the accomplishments that you have done. Instead, they just see you as the son of Tartarus." And instantly I'm like, well, that's a little bit... Yeah, I would see why they would hate you, because, it's very interesting that we get to see one of his kids. The other interesting thing about Severin, God, I keep messing up his name, is he was on one of the moons of Doizak when Cortana blew it up. And I did not even think about this. When they saw that, obviously he was filled with rage and hatred and confusion as to how this could happen. But he said, we have to get everyone out. Not just the soldiers, everything, like our entire clan, women, children, everything. And I thought just because, it's like, yeah, because he's afraid that Cortana's going to blow up the moons, right? No, it's because the planet's gone, so the planets don't have anything to orbit around, so they're just going to shoot into space and probably get grabbed by a sun. So they had to literally not only abandon their homeworld because it was destroyed, but they had to now abandon the moons that were around their planet because they're not really going to exist anymore. So it is pretty interesting. The other character that is in this is Dovo Nesto, who is a San Shayum who claims to have been around during the formation of the Covenant, during the truce that the Sangeli and the San Shayum had. I know there's a certain name for like the treaty and contract that they had. I cannot remember it right now. But some of the things that they learned that he has, because he's extremely good with Forerunner technology. So Dovo Nesto had a device that he was able to decrypt. He's extremely good with Forerunner technology, unfortunately. And he found a poem, I guess is what you could call it, and the things that are in it are quite interesting. The passage that Dovo Nesto translates is, "We who claim the blessings of rule and protection of life and change that things have been brought to the domain of our makers. The Starlight Angel shows us the twinning streams, bright as crystal, flowing from their throne, the tree mark of life. We shall build bridges to that kingdom, so that generations to come may be blessed with wisdom and their strength to blaze as a luminous sun." So there's a lot there that like they can be, that he is slowly learning, that he doesn't fully know, but we do know. So when he's saying, the Starlight Angel, we know that's Abaddon, the precursor AI that was on Maithrillian. We know that when they say the twinning streams, they literally mean living time. And it's just interesting. And the tree mark of life, which is the symbol for the mantle of responsibility. But it was such an interesting passage to see that he's slowly learning more. Now, do I think Dover Nesto is telling the truth when he says that he has been around since the beginning of the Covenant's formation? I don't know. He is a Sanshayum, and they tend to thrive on lying if they can get power from it. So, going back to the overall point of this book, it is, these are just the characters and what they're doing and how they interact, but I really do not want to go into spoiler territory into this book. The main point is they're trying to find the entryway, or a entryway, into the domain. This happens before and then during the events of Halo Infinite. And I just think it is a phenomenal book. I highly recommend that if you are curious what is going on in the Halo universe during this time, during the current time that we know in 2560, this is the book to know what's happening in the universe. It is tremendous. There's nothing else I can say without going into spoiler territory. Also, Stolt is one of the coolest grunts ever. The next book I read after that was Halo Legacy of Onyx, and I actually really like this book. Out of the Matt Forbeck books, this is definitely my favorite. It is, I mean, it doesn't say that it's a young adult novel. There's 2 other Halo novels that are considered young adult, but this one I would say is also, because it is about 4, adolescents, 2 of them being human, Molly and Kareem, and then there is Bakar, an elite, and then Gundam, a grunt. So this takes place, it's called Legacy of Onyx. It's on Onyx, the sarcophagus, whatever you want to call it. But basically, the humans and the elites and the grunts are trying to, cooperate and show they can get along. And so the main point of the story is that there's a school, and they have to learn different things, because they have 3 different species here. And Molly is adopted because her parents were killed because of the Covenant. So there's a lot of hatred there, She really doesn't like anything but humans at the start. And obviously, slowly, since they're friends, it does change for certain things. One funny thing that happened, this book had a lot of good quotes in it. One funny thing that happened was the principal of the school is an elite, and her name escapes me. But one thing that Molly asked, she said, "Are there going to be aliens at the school?" And she went, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean aliens," because even though she didn't really like her at this point, she was still like, okay, that was kind of rude. And she said, "Do you mean there'll be other species?" "Yes, but calling them aliens isn't exactly appropriate. To a Sangeli fledgling, you are an alien." She's like, "Oh, okay, fair point." I liked her as a character. The main point is, they're trying to get along and all that stuff, and then this is a little bit more spoiler territory. 2 things about this book. So, there is a character, one of Drul Imdama's sons, the Pale Blade, is sneaking onto Onyx, and he snuck on there because of the portal from Sanghelios, the same one that Drul Imdama snuck onto. Why was it not heavily guarded from the last incident that happened? Because they did capture Drul Imdama when they found him, sneaking into Onyx. Why was it not extremely heavily guarded? I don't know. That's one of the things that's kind of annoying about this book. It's like, maybe you should have guarded the thing that, someone snuck onto last time. Because the sarcophagus is a shield world that is 2 AU wide. So there's a lot of space to hide. But seeing how Molly, Kareem... Oops. I'm going to have to edit that. Seeing how Molly, Kareem, Bakar... those of you who read the book will know what I censored. And Gundam get along. It was a pretty interesting journey. There are some quotes that I did take photos of that I would like to see. There's one part that I do remember. It's extremely funny. Actually, I think I remember both of them. I'll just do not word for word. Bakar had learned that his father had died and he really didn't care. But Molly was still trying to be nice, and they would basically like on their Helo pads or whatever, they were texting each other when they were each home at night. And she said, "I'm sorry that your that you know that your parents are dead. I'm sorry about that." And he said, um, "My parents died when I lost my mother. This changes nothing." Basically saying he didn't really care for his father. I mean, for two reasons. Like, when you know who his father is, you get why. But also at the same time, it's really hard for elites to care about their fathers, because the thing about their culture is you never know who your father is. You have a keep, so you have a lot of people. You live with your cousins and aunts and uncles. And, let's say I have a child, right? My child will call my brother uncle, but he will also call me uncle because he will not know that I am his father. And I would have to raise my son and my brother's son as if they were both my own, and they could never know which one is which. And if I show favoritism towards my son, not only will he be executed, but I will as well. I don't know why the elites have that type of culture. Maybe it's just because that's how you raise a strong keep and a strong race. But yeah, seeing that interaction was pretty interesting. There was another funny part where the school on Onyx is locked down. Like the high school. It is in a lockdown. And some punk human and his friends are like, "I don't think we should be stuck in here anymore. Why don't we take it to a vote?" And the principal says, "You are confusing yourself for an adult and this school as a democracy." Basically saying, sit down, which I thought was incredible. One other thing that is interesting that also happened, it's nothing major, but I just thought it was interesting about like trying to change, because the elites are trying to realize, yes, we were fooled following the prophets, but they get attacked by a creature at some point that in the elite culture they thought was just a myth, right? But when the guy said, "Hey," when Picard said, "Look at it. Look at the description of it. Is literally the thing in our our stories that we tell kids." And she said, "By the rings." And then she kind of squinted and looked at Picard and said, "Sorry, force of habit." So it was pretty interesting. This book is very, very well written. I like it. There is also a Huragok, prone to drift. And it just, I don't know. I always love seeing Huragok because the way that they interact and the way that they view things is very interesting. You could literally threaten them and they're like, "Okay, can I fix something? Because that's all I want to do." So, not too much I want to say about this book without going into spoiler territory. But I recommend this book. Like I said, out of all the books I've read by Matt Forbeck, this one's definitely my favorite. So the next two books were A Pair, Battleborn and Meridian Divide. They Battleborn was the first YA novel in Halo, and I was like, what the heck is YA? Oh, young adult. Okay, got it. I will say this about Battleborn. I actually liked Battleborn. The only thing that was a little bit annoying was the four teenagers, Victor, Evie, Dorian, and Sakia. There were some times where I feel like they were sneaking around the city and just not getting caught by the Covenant too easily, because like they literally had no training. But it was interesting seeing a planet being taken over by the Covenant from the civilian perspective. That's something we've never seen before, except for the audio logs, briefly in ODST. But in a novel in more detail, it was pretty interesting. This takes place on Meridian. We have a couple levels on there in Halo 5, so you know how it ends up, how it gets attacked and everything. But Battleborn, overall, I did like. They also have a Spartan 3, Owen, who was awesome. He was, very tough and everything. One thing about Battleborn I did not like, though, was he was trying to, Owen, the Spartan 3 was trying to train them really quickly, like just basic stuff to survive so they could sneak into town. And I can't remember which two did it. I think it was Eve and Dorian said, "Oh, we'll just go in the trees and sneak up on him." And, they land right in front of him and he's like, "Didn't even hear you coming." I'm like, there's no way he would not have known that. One, because of his armor, and two, he's a Spartan 3. So That was the only thing I had with Battleborn, but I liked the book. It was all right. Meridian Divide, not so much. There was a point in this book. They have an artifact. They have like basically a key, and they go to the other side of the planet to see what it could activate. But the Covenant are in control of it. And one of the kids is like, hey, we have an idea, Owen. Can all four of us sneak in there and do a little test that we think might work with the activation? You know, like the the key for this installation. And he's like, sure, just don't get caught. I'm like, there's no way you would do that. They've had 6 months of training at this point. But they're still kids. Like, they're not Spartans. Like, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, don't get caught. Oh, by the way, if they get killed, they have they have control of the installation and now the key. They have the index to it. So other than like the second book was really hard to swallow. If you do read them, I would say you can have them be the last Halo books you read. In terms of how they're written pretty well. Like, I didn't hate the writing style. I was just hating like some of the things that was happening in it. But like I said, Battleborn is pretty good. I will say one thing: if Dorian comes back and he's not an insurrectionist, that's gonna be a surprise to me, because especially in Meridian Divide, the way he was talking sounds like he was really admiring the insurrectionists. The next two books I read was the Ferret trilogy. So is Last Light, Retribution, and Divine Wind. Last Light was pretty different from Halo novels. It was basically an investigation story. There is a couple murders that have been happening on a planet in a tourist attraction, Gaio, Gao is the name of the planet, and they're happening deep in like this cave system. And there's a detective, Veda Lopez, who is in charge of uncovering them, and Blue Team is there as well. Because since there's been so many of them, the UNSC had to get involved. And they sent a whole battalion, which, they're not exactly fans of, because Gaio is not... They're no longer part of the insurrectionists, but they did have a history with them, right? So it was interesting that... Because, Veda immediately, she's like, well, it has to be these Spartans, because who else can do these horrific, murders? Because some of the way that they were murdered was gruesome. So just seeing that paranoid perspective of her being like, she says she goes off the evidence, but she really wanted it to be the Spartans. Not for like some hate of the UNSC or anything, but she just said like these giants in this armor are capable of pretty much anything, so how can it not be them, right? And, later on, they get deeper and deeper down, and there are some Spartan 3s there. It's Olivia, Ash, and Mark. And she pretty much immediately pinned. She's like, it's gotta be Ash. It's gotta be Ash. Because they're Gammas. And they're going pretty far down. And they try risking it and try and see if they can go down a little bit further before they go back up. But they start running out of their smoothers, which is pretty dangerous for Gammas. And that was also fun seeing, because they always talked about it. But, when Kurt gave them these extra... let's say bonus augmentations, but we never saw the downside of it, and seeing them slowly get off their smoothers was pretty interesting. The type of paranoia that they get and the aggression levels that they get, like when Olivia just completely tore apart, literally when she tore apart the Sentinel with her bare hands. We are also introduced to Intrepid Eye, who is a meta-arc in Scylla, and God, she's so annoying in a good way. Like, she, as a character, she's great, but like, she is, she basically throughout this book, these next three books, I'm gonna go a little spoiler. She does basically realize, oh, you guys are reclaimers. Okay, so I'm meant to guide you, so I will do that. But she's just ruthless in the way she wants to do it. I'll talk more about that with the other books, is where it more takes place, but she was trying to pull a human through a very small, narrow hole in the cave. And the person had, his arms and legs on the wall trying to not be pulled in. And then she scanned him and went, oh, you have sockets. Pop. And it was just extremely gruesome reading. Her just basically like popping his arms and legs and then pulling him through the hole. There is a Huragok named roams alone. I always love the names for Huragok because the way that they name them is either something that they do or something that has to be done with them once they are born, right? So, roams alone, likes to be by himself. Go figure. So when Intrepid Eye is like, "Hey, you have to follow me. We have to do this real quick," he'll follow for a little bit and go like, "Hey, what's that over there?" He's also a unique Huragok because he's smaller than a regular one that we know, and he's green. So he doesn't fix. I won't talk about that. That's a good he doesn't fix what? Doesn't fix what? But he's a different type of Huragok that we've encountered in the games and the books. He's a really cool character. I really enjoyed him. So the other cool character in this book is Castor, and he is another remnant from the Covenant, a very small faction that is trying to restore the Covenant to its former glory. And I don't think I'm going to ever get old of seeing that for quite some time because, I mean, the Covenant was massive when it was destroyed. So there's obviously going to be people who are either trying to fix it because, one, they believe in how the Covenant functioned and all the ideologies and worshipping the Forerunners, or two, it's just a power vacuum. People are like, I can restore the Covenant and be at the top of it now? Yes, please. But Castor is, in his eyes, a true believer because, he still believes in the Great Journey. So he is on the planet because he knows that there is an ancient Forerunner machine. He knows that Intrepid Eye is on there. Doesn't know, exactly that's her name and everything. But he knows that there is a Forerunner AI there and wants to free it so that, one, the humans don't have it because obviously heretics shouldn't have godlike things. And two, the work that he thinks the AI will do to help him restore the Covenant would be tremendous. So that's a pretty good basic understanding of what the book is basically going to be. It's a murder mystery, and then there's a faction of the Covenant trying to go down there as well. So that is a really cool part of the book where they're so deep in the caves that it's, everyone's kind of cramped and paranoid. And then obviously the Gammas are getting off their smoothers. So things, slowly get worse and worse as they start hallucinating and getting paranoid and all that stuff. I think that's going to be the only review I do for the first book. So it was very different, but in a good way. It was very nice seeing a murder mystery. So Halo Retribution it's also different compared to a typical Halo novel. There is a bioweapon that is being made, and they, Olivia and her ferrets are trying to track it down, and they have to find the bodies of a fleet admiral. And the bodies are eventually found at a base, Salvation Base, I believe is the name. And Castor's in charge of that, so he's being framed. And he eventually finds the bodies and knows he's being framed. So it is Veda Lopez and the Spartan Threes and Castor following the same trail, but they're not working together, but they are following the same trail to try to see, Castor wants to see who framed me, and Veda wants to find out who's making this bioweapon that is extremely dangerous. And only you as the reader knows that Intrepid Eye was captured, quote-unquote captured, by Oni, but she was basically the one who was in the mastermind, the one in charge of it, right? Trying to get rid of humanity. But when I saw that she was in it and that she was captured, I'm like, there's no way humanity has the power right now to hold an Ancilla, especially Intrepid Eye, because she's a very high class Ancilla. She's literally an Archon class. So I liked Intrepid Eye in this one was interesting. I did like the way how she was manipulating things from behind the scenes. But the main story is really just seeing her plan get foiled by Castor and Ferret, but in their own way, right? I was worried that they were going to do the whole, you were set up, And they want us to think it was you. Let's team up. No, Castor is definitely like, I hate the humans. They are heretics. They are non-believers. The last thing I will say about Retribution, this is more just about Castor overall, but his faction name is really cool. Keepers of the One Freedom. That is an awesome name. All the different Covenant mini sections, the names that they have to show that they are the true ones that are going to revise the Covenant are really cool. The two main ones, you'll see is Keepers of the One Freedom and then Servants of the Abiding Truth. That is a sick name. That makes me want to join them just for the name alone. But yeah, that's just a little quick note that I thought was really cool about that book. So Divine Win was, out of this trilogy, this one is my favorite. This was a really, really good book. It is, and this one I'm going to try not to do any spoilers, but so it starts with Castor, and there are two names I'm going to definitely butcher. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, but Castor and Islan Gadogai. He was an elite that was part of the Silent Shadow. They go through the portal on Reach to the Ark. They're, already in a battle because the Banished are fighting the humans. And they are fighting with the Covenant, and they eventually meet up with the other name I'm going to butcher, Das Basvode, who is a prelate. Second time we've ever seen one. When you see the cover of this book, when I saw the top of the ship, I was like, that looks like a prelate. If that's true, this is going to be rough. Prelates are basically the Sanshayim's version of Spartans. They're super soldiers. They are temporarily stronger than Spartans because they have a belt that can give them basically a bunch of different steroids and augmentations temporarily making them stronger. However, the longer they do it, they suffer more later on, and it's more painful. So it's really something they only try to do in very rare instances. But even without that, they are very well-trained soldiers. They are not born with the physical limitations that other Sanshayim are that were born on High Charity. But they eventually meet up and realize that they have a common goal, that they want to activate the Ark and, do the Great Journey. And as they're talking, Intrepid Eye pops up out of his weapon, out of Das's weapon, and I just went, oh, god dang it, what is she doing here? This is the only spoiler I will give. Intrepid Eye is with Castor because she pretty much goes, humans are reclaimers. I accept that. They are the true inheritors of the man's responsibility, but this version of humans right now suck. So I'm going to trick this moron to activate the Ark, kill all life in the galaxy, kill then these people on the Ark, take control of it, and then I will replant life in the galaxy and help humans be steered towards the true reclaimers they are meant to be. So she's trying to help humanity, but in the wrong way, because she doesn't want to help us. She wants to help the next section of humans. So all of them pretty much agree, cool, we're going to go to the Ark and activate it. We're going to go to the cartographer. The other cool thing about this book is, so you see that Veda and her ferrets, Ashmark and Olivia, are undercover. And the reason they are undercover with Castor and they are part of the Keepers of One Freedom is for two reasons. One, since they are part of the Banished now, they accept humans into their ranks. They have no problem with that. As long as you are a believer in the Great Journey, they accept anyone. Two, even though Castor dealt with them in the past, they always had their helmets on, so he doesn't really know who they are. Islan, Gadogai, pretty much keeps saying, I think she's an Oni spy. And he's like, nonsense. She's been with us for years. So they are deep undercover. So I thought that was also cool. The other interesting thing about this is there are two characters that have returned from Halo Wars to DLC, Pavam and Vordis. They were in huge trouble after the events of the DLC. awaken the nightmare because they were told not to go into High Charity, and they went into High Charity, and they almost released the flood on the Ark, which could have had terrible. It would have done terrible damage to the galaxy because they'd be like, "Cool, we have the thing that can kill us. We have control of it, so now we can just go to the galaxy and just deal with everything there." So they were extremely demoted in the Banished. So when they eventually learn that they are trying to go to the Citadel and activate the Ark, they say, "Hey, if we, we're gonna have to break off from our post, but if we go there and defend it and kill them, we'll gain favor with Atriox." So they are trying to get back in favor with him, and I think it's really, really cool. So overall, like I said, I don't want to give too much spoilers for this book because it is a really, really good book. But out of this Ferret trilogy, which I don't know if that's the official name, but that's just what I'm calling it. But out of the sets of book that have Veda Lopez, Ash, Mark, and Olivia, this one was definitely my favorite. I really, really enjoyed it. I know I said you have to read Ghost of Reach, but I really think the main three trilogy with them is Last Light, Retribution, and Divine Wind, and each one I always liked it better than the other one. Not because the previous ones were bad, but just because they were getting better and better. I know recently they've been going back and forth with the books between Troy Denning and Kelly Gay. Not that that's a bad thing. I've been enjoying their stuff, but I did like that they got someone new for Empty Throne. But overall, Divine Wind is a really good book. So, all these recordings that I did for the book reviews, I did at once, and I realized that was a bit of a mistake because there were some important parts of books I missed and forgot to talk about with certain characters. So I said it's an easy mistake to learn from. From now on, whenever I finish a book, I will do these reviews throughout the year. I just finished Halo Edge of Dawn, and it is a very simple story in a good way. It's a very simple plot. I mean, I think you really need to not only play Halo Infinite to understand the story, but you need to read Halo Rubicon Protocol to understand the depths of it. The main story is that Master Chief and the weapon, who I will not reveal the name that she gave herself, they discover that Lucas Browning is still alive and that he has been tortured by Jaga for the past 6 months. And when they rescue him, he reveals something that happened to him throughout his torture. And they're basically trying to fix him, and various things happen along the way. There is, at one point, is this a big spoiler or not? I don't think it is. They come across a Hurugok, and I won't say how, but they somehow basically get to witness a memory as it happened through a device that was basically recording things, from what I gathered. And so they get to see some Forerunners, the members of the Criterion, talking, and they used a word that I've never seen before. And that's one thing I like about reading, is you get to discover new ways to increase your vocabulary. And I'll always have my phone near me when I read to see the definitions of words. But the word that they used was, they said, our Pyrrhic victory against the Flood. It's Pyrrhic. I don't know why I said Pyrrhic. I was very tired. Apologies. And I went, okay, what's a Pyrrhic victory compared to a victory? The word Pyrrhic means you've won something, but at a great cost. And I went, okay, this is the only time I've ever seen that word. I think that will be the most accurate use of that word I will ever see, because, yeah, you did beat the Flood. Congratulations. You had to wipe out all sentient life in the galaxy to do it, so it did come at a heavy cost. So yeah, that saying their Pyrrhic victory against the Flood, extremely accurate. Um, but that was just a funny thing for that short memory. But the book is, it's really good, and the relationship that you see that Chief has with, almost said her name, that Chief has with the weapon, and that he forms with Browning, and Esparza is there as well. Echo 216. It is a really good book. It's also a very fast read, not just because it's 300 pages, but because the way it flows. And this is just a very basic recap of what happens. There's a bunch of small things that happen in between it, um, that I just don't want to be spoiled. But it's made me a little bit more hopeful. One thing I will say about Halo Infinite, I don't mind the Endless or the Xanalan, I think is how you pronounce it, but I just don't like the way that they were introduced. I actually have a theory as to what Halo Infinite story was going to be. I'm debating on making that a video because it was on Zeta Halo. So, and when Cortana said there are things much more dangerous than the Flood on this ring, I was like, that makes no sense. The rings were made to kill and contain the Flood. So how can something be more dangerous than that? So I hated the Endless when I first heard about them. This book has made me not as spiteful against them. However, I just think that the way that they've been introduced into the universe was not done proper. But you know, that, trying to think the right way to describe it, but this book did ease that knowledge of them. I think it is very interesting, and I actually am interested to see where they're going to take the story now with the next new Halo title. I'm also interested in the next book that releases. They obviously this just came out. This is actually, yeah, Merry Christmas is when I'm recording this. So it took me about 2 weeks to read this book, but I'm pretty hopeful for the next Halo game with this knowledge that this book has done. I'm excited for the next book overall, and I'm hoping that they have another book by Kelly Gay because her writing is fantastic. Like I said earlier in this video, she has now done 6 books for the Halo universe, and I think they are all fantastic. So I really like her writing style. I know recently it seems that 343 Halo Studios, whatever you want to call them, has been going between Kelly Gay and Troy Denning, which I have no problem with either of their writings. I've heard some people say negative things about Troy Denning, how he writes Master Chief, but I disagree. But yeah, I'm very happy with all the Halo books that I've read this year, and until the next one comes out, I can now say that I've read all the novels. I'll have to start working on the comics next, but having read all the Halo novels is a very big milestone for me. And this was just a good year of books. I hope you guys find books next year. Maybe that could be a good New Year's goal for 2026. Doesn't have to just be Halo, could be anything, but I would say if you've been like watching these videos from me, or more importantly like actual YouTubers and big Halo YouTubers, give them a try. The Halo novels are pretty good. I think there's only like a handful where you'll be like, it was alright. They're all amazing. Whether it's stuff that involves the Forerunners and the Precursors, or if you just want to see how humanity fought the Covenant. I think they're all fantastic. So yeah, that's gonna be my review for everything. So have a good one, guys, and happy reading.